Welcome to my art studio. I'm Teri Hendrich, a fine art painter from Los Angeles, California. We're here today to do a walkthrough of the artworks that I've created for my latest collection entitled Venus in the 12th. This series took me over a year to complete. Each painting is layered with symbols and meaning. I approached the creation of this collection of work like a musician might approach creating a music album. While each painting can stand on its own, collectively I wanted these works to feel cohesive and to flow with each other in order to tell a greater story. Love, poetry, past lives, and astrology are the threads I've used to weave this story. So let me tell you more about them. The first piece in this collection serves as an introduction to me as the narrator, and it is titled A Portrait of the Artist and Her Stelliums. Unlike most self-portraits that feature the artist's physical appearance, I wanted this painting to instead focus on my energetic qualities as a person. I've done this by symbolically depicting my two stelliums. In astrology, stelliums occur when 3 or more planets appear in the sky under the same zodiac sign. They tend to say a lot about a person if they have one in their natal chart, but not everyone does. And for clarity, a natal chart serves as a snapshot of the sky at the moment of a person's birth. So when I was born, there were planets forming stelliums in the signs of Libra and Cancer, which are represented here by the objects I'm holding in my left and right hands. If you look closely, you'll see the glyphs of the planets that make up each of my stelliums. Another layer of significance is that the scales and the candlestick holder that I've depicted here were actually modeled after antiques that are over 100 years old that were passed down to me by my Hendrich family ancestors. I did take some creative license though in metamorphosizing the base of the candlestick holder into a crab to symbolize the sign of Cancer. I chose to include the glyph of one additional planet in this painting that is not necessarily a part of my stelliums, but she plays a big role in my chart, and that's Venus, which appears here on my earring. As a Libra rising, Venus serves as my ascendant ruler, so she has a lot to say in my life, and you'll see that she plays a leading role in the story that is about to unfold through the paintings in this collection. Our story officially begins with this piece, titled Venus in the 12th House. In astrology, there are not only planets and zodiac signs, but there are also houses, and every natal chart is composed of 12 of them, with each house representing a different area of one's life. So for example, there is a house for partnerships and relationships, and there is another house that signifies your career, and another house for friendships. The 12th house is said to be one of the dark houses, and it's often considered one of the most challenging houses in a person's chart, since it represents themes such as solitude, the unknown, and that which is hidden. In my natal chart, the planet Venus resides here. As I mentioned earlier, Venus is my ascendant ruler, so she also represents me. So we establish here that the planet of creativity, beauty, and romance is hidden away in this mysterious 12th house. And it's from this point of view that she and I experience the world. Although the archetypal themes of astrology largely served as my source of inspiration for each of these paintings, they are also loosely based on The Lady of Shalott, a poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson. In that poem, the Lady of Shalott is a woman who is confined inside a tower just outside Camelot, and she has some mysterious curse that causes her to experience the world from this place of isolation as she spends her days weaving, which I would consider an act of creativity. And this story, I felt, serves as a perfect mirror to what my experience has been living with Venus in the 12th house. There is a moment in the poem when the Lady of Shalott is overcome by the presence of Sir Lancelot, who happens to stroll by her tower one day. This painting depicts that moment, but instead of seeing a knight in shining armor outside of her window, we see this beautiful force of energy that has taken this colorful, abstract form, which we'll see repeated throughout this collection. In this next painting, titled The Fallen Evening Star, we zoom out and get to see more of Venus's surroundings, and although she is seen standing outside, for all intents and purposes, I would consider her to still be in the territory of the 12th house. Seen just above the doorway of the house is a glyph of Virgo, which is an important detail in the whole sign house system of astrology. Each house is said to correspond with a different zodiac sign, and it just so happens that my 12th house is in Virgo. Why this is meaningful is because Venus is said to be in her fall or depression in Virgo, because There are some signs that certain planets really thrive in, and there are other signs that planets typically struggle in. So we establish here that not only is Venus in the dark house of the 12th, but she's also under Virgo's rulership, which is not a place she enjoys being. And as my ascendant ruler, this is how I experience the world from this fallen state. In this painting, we also see that this colorful, energetic force that has captured Venus's attention is emanating from the river down below and connecting back to her. We learn more about this mysterious, colorful energy in this next painting, titled The Fallen Warrior, Lifted by Her Tide. A new character is introduced here in the form of Mars. He is traveling by boat on this river. And like Venus, who is in her fall in Virgo, Mars here and in my chart is in his fall in the water sign of Cancer, whose glyph I've painted on the tapestry that is draped over the boat. This work is directly inspired by the painting The Lady of Shalott by John William Waterhouse. I mentioned earlier that I approached the creation of these artworks like a musician, and I would consider this to be my cover song of that 1888 painting. And it's actually that painting that first introduced me to Alfred Lord Tennyson's poem of the same name. For years, I thought about creating this painting, or cover song, if you will, and imagined that I would depict a woman in the boat, as Waterhouse had. But when I thought about the story I wanted to tell, I felt like flipping the script. Since in Tennyson's poem, Lancelot the Knight is completely oblivious to the impact he has had on the Lady of Shalott. But in my version of the story, I wanted this fallen warrior to be an active participant in this love story and to be just as captivated by this energy as Venus is. How Venus and Mars interact in my chart is that they are sextile to each other, which is considered a positive or supportive aspect between two planets. Additionally, Mars is uniquely positioned to have a line of sight into the 12th house, and to be able to see Venus and all her beautiful qualities that she is unable to see in herself. Mars also plays an important role in my life because as a Libra rising, he serves as the ruler of my 7th house of relationships. So he definitely symbolizes what type of person my love interest would be. And in the sign of Cancer, I'd imagine him to be a sensitive and nurturing type of soul. Additionally, I wanted to establish the idea that this male character would be the one who is traveling and in pursuit of a destination instead of the female character like in the poem. The next chapter of my story is this painting titled Reunion. At this point, I've now completely deviated from Tennyson's poem, since in that story, spoiler alert, the Lady of Shalott perishes in her journey to Lancelot. So when she finally comes upon him, she's already dead. I didn't want my story to end so tragically, but it also felt untrue to the tale of my Mars and Venus as they exist in my chart to show them together and happily ever after. I wanted to leave room for some mystery since, after all, Venus is in the 12th house, and whatever takes place there is never fully visible to the outside world. Therefore, it's unclear who is in the house and whether Venus is there by herself or not. But what we do see is that this colorful energy has lit up the inside of this home. And this energy is so strong that its colors even appear in the night sky like an aurora borealis. And the title of this painting suggests that maybe these two characters are not encountering each other for the first time. Maybe they already know each other and have met before, which is an idea that is expanded upon in my next painting. If this was a music album, I would look at this painting as a piece of instrumental music, which I've titled our Synodic Cycle. In astronomy, the word synodic refers to the conjunction or meeting of planets in our sky, and therefore a synodic cycle refers to periods of time that planets take to travel to the same position in relation to one another. And these cycles actually form patterns if you were to trace a planet's path in the sky. For example, Venus has a beautiful synodic cycle in relation to the Sun that looks like a 5-pointed rose. I've abstracted the idea of what a synodic cycle might look like here by giving it more of a 3-dimensional form that is bursting with color. And the suggestion here is that this colorful energy that you saw emanating between Mars and Venus is actually cyclical in nature, that maybe we as living souls experience synodic cycles with each other, and that as we move from one life to another, that there are certain people we will reliably encounter again and again, but under different conditions. Since when planets meet, it's not always under the same sign or house, so even though there is some level of repetition happening here, in reality, it's a little different each time. One last note on this painting, since I've now introduced the idea of past lives into the story, is that astrology supports the idea of reincarnation through the nodes, which are these theoretical points in the sky where the sun and moon eclipse each other, and it's these points that are said to represent our past and future selves within our natal charts. Stephen Forrest is an astrologer who has specialized his practice on studying the nodes, and he once said, "The memories of the heart are robust, and they survive the trauma of death and rebirth." And I would say that that quote really embodies the feeling of what I wanted to capture in this painting. My last piece in this collection is titled Under a Balsamic Moon. You may have noticed that it visually calls back to some of the earlier pieces that you saw. And the idea I wanted to communicate through that is to suggest that we're now in a different time period and possibly present day, but instead of Venus looking outside her window, it's now Mars who is on the inside looking out. The title, however, refers back to my own natal chart, since I was born under a waning crescent moon, which is also referred to as a balsamic moon. And the lunar phase that someone is born under is astrologically significant because it says something about the types of themes and karmic energy that you are likely to encounter in this lifetime. A balsamic moon occurs at the end of a lunar cycle, so if we layer the idea of a synodic cycle into this, there is some suggestion here that if this martial character has not yet met up with whoever is on the other end of that prismatic force of energy in this lifetime, that perhaps he will his next. One last note I wanted to add about this collection is that while I was coming up with this story and roughing out the idea for each painting, I was also taking a professional course in astrology with Austin Coppock, since I wanted to come from a place of knowledge when presenting this material. And I realized that not only could I make these paintings about astrology, but I could actually utilize planetary magic to enhance their value. I've done that by timing the creation of 6 of the pieces in this collection with different elections, which in effect make these works not just paintings, but also magical talismans. This is based on the idea that everything has a natal chart, not just people, but events and objects as well. So everyone knows that Mercury retrogrades are time periods that are often challenging in one way or another, but what most people don't know is that there are also auspicious moments in time that astrologers consider to be rather fortuitous. These moments are referred to as elections, since if you know about them in advance, then you could elect to initiate a project at that specific time in order to capture the auspicious energy of the planets at that moment through that object's natal chart, which is what I've done here. Therefore, a collector of these paintings would not only be bringing a beautiful, one-of-a-kind piece of art into their home, but they would also be in possession, quite literally, of a magical artifact. These paintings will be on view as part of a month-long gallery show titled Venus in the 12th that opens February 1st, 2024 at Gallery 839, which is located within the Animation Guild in Burbank, California. Please visit my site at terihc.art for event details as well as purchasing information. Along with these paintings, I will also be releasing a self-published book that beautifully chronicles this collection, as well as a collectible limited edition fine art print of The Fallen Evening Star, both of which are available for pre-order now on my site and will be released on February 1st, 2024. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, then consider following me for more art content.